Welcome back to my channel, guys. Time for another manga chapter review. Welcome once again, guys. We'll be talking about Shojo Null. This is chapter 21. It is a very intense chapter. I'm trying to get back to the beginning here. Very intense chapter. Chapter 21 is the birth of the Jinjin. So how they came to be doesn't concluded. So chapter 22 is really going to conclude, I guess, the story, hopefully. But we did get why they were invented, how they were invented, very much similar to, what you would imagine why androids would be invented for, but still, it does explain it. The tragedy of really why it was invented. So before anything, guys, if you haven't done so by now, make sure you do subscribe to my channel. I do have 20 chapter reviews on this series already out, so if you haven't seen any of those, you're welcome to watch this video, but you can watch the other videos as well. Explains the story detail by detail of what's going on in the chapters and my thoughts on what's going to happen next, but also what in general is happening in the story. So go check those out. Also, guys, if you want to follow me on social media or are just interested in buying cheap manga and anime, there is links in the description below, so use them, check them out. I do appreciate all the support and love that you show this channel, so continue showing it by checking those things out. Okay, Shojo Null. We go to the past, and essentially it starts off on the year 2037. I can't say 37, and it is in Washington. And essentially we have a woman president, and she's basically declaring that we're gonna have a good generation and so on and so forth. And there is a massive terrorist attack there in the White House. She's killed, and numerous people are killed. I think they say it's around 200 people that were killed in that day. It says the president, her cabinet members, and more than 100 people lost their lives that day. So not 200, maybe 130, 140 if you consider the cabinet. It's a pretty big cabinet. So but all the leaders died, which means it creates chaos in the United States. It explains how states start separating from each other, and because of that, different sides of the world separate to two sides, essentially the Federalist and the Independent. And what ends up happening is, through this war, there's these planes that are invented. Now these planes are called Spits, I believe. They're in the independent war group, I guess, and they are not controlled by humans. They're AI. First of all, like I said, a lot of this stuff, it makes sense. I can see that happening, and I can see that happening right now in the US. AI is a big thing, but it's been a thing for a while, which means the US probably has been experimenting with it already, and more likely they've experimented on weapons like this. So this weapon is basically learning on its own, and is choosing to kill humans and civilians that are not really involved. And this is where it's becoming more of an issue. So we do see a woman and her child get targeted and killed. So it's hard, but it is what it is. So then we meet our Professor Maccabee. Kind of lower the brightness on that. I did lower it, but it keeps going up. Our Professor Maccabee and his wife, who was also a professor. Her name is Amida. Oh, well, some connections. Yeah, we do have some connections there. So, Amida was a target of one of these planes going ballistic, and basically, she lost functionality of her body. Brain cells died, and he was able to save her. So she's basically in a vegetable state almost, and he is trying his best to keep her alive and find either a cure or just live the last days that she can with her until she's dead. So very, very sad part to it. We do see that Professor Makabe doesn't give up, and he still experiments with her to see if he can figure out a way to bring her back. And then we see what, again, expected. I think the government keeps zooming in. The government shows up, and they very much look like they're German, to be honest. Like they're Nazis, but essentially they make a proposition to him. They're like, "Hey, we're already in the research for Jinjins, for human androids, and this can revolutionize the war. It could pivot it to our benefit. We can create a Jinjin that can control these ballistic planes and make them more of a actual weapon that will not hurt us." And he also explains how eventually they want to build an army of androids that can take commands and fight their battles. And he's like, wouldn't that just be great? Wouldn't you think that will benefit our country the most? And he's very much against it, but he doesn't really say it out loud. He just says that he wants to live a quiet life with his wife and doesn't really want to get involved in that whole situation. So the guy points a gun at his face and lets him know that denial is not really an option. They're just explaining what they want him to do. So they force his hand into researching and building these brains that he doesn't really know where they come from, but they give him these brains that he can work on. And he already, as a human, gets all these questions about the brains himself. One, where they come from, but B, he has this mentality of, will they feel emotions? Will they feel pain? Will they feel fear? Will they feel happiness? Right? Because it is an AI eventually. I mean, at the end of the day, so it is, and on its own can learn. So he is having nightmares about it. He ends up actually really, really not wanting to do it, but he still ends up doing it because he still has hopes that this experimenting will eventually help his wife. This is just a nightmare he had. The heads were following him. He wakes up and he essentially concludes the prototypes of Jinja. Now, as you can see, they're not human. They're more like floating brains. And that's because, again, their main purpose right now is to have them on these jet planes. So they don't need the whole body. They just need the brain. They just need the command center, right? So he's not fully there because we still gotta build the body. So I can assume that maybe his wife might actually be the first body he uses to transplant one of these brains. So we'll have to see. For now, guys, it's a really good series. This chapter definitely moved it forward to the actual story of Shojo Null. So I'm really excited to see what happens next. Thank you guys so much for watching this. If you haven't done so by now, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Like always, don't be strangers. See you guys.